Nope, we're all here. We're only 4 right now. Yeah.
That way.
Red light. Yeah.
Hi, Zaba.
I take it the red light is on. Oh, it looks red from here. Ah, there it is. It's really red. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Yountville Parks and Rec Commission for March 20th, 2025 to order. And we'll start with a roll call.
Commissioners David,
Here.
Ruig,
Here.
Vice Chair Courtney,
Here.
and Chair Tenscher.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to have a motion to adopt the agenda if no one has any additions or changes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes unanimously. Approval of minutes is the next item, item 5 on our agenda. That's from January 16th, 2025. Did anybody have any additions or changes to the minutes? Then I'd like to go ahead and have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. This is an opportunity for public comment. Seeing no public in the audience, I'll bring it back here, and we'll go ahead and move to item 7, which is consideration of approval to update the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission bylaws, Article 6A, changing the start time of the regular meeting. So I think we'll start with a discussion about why we should change and what we should change it to if we feel there should be a change, and what the pros and cons of a change would be. So, Myrna, this was something that I think you had interest in, and apparently it's wrecking your social life.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
It is overlapping with my dinner hour, however. So that's one of the reasons I thought we might consider changing it to an earlier hour. It's also somewhat unprecedented to be this late. None of the other commission or foundation meetings take place this late. And I have a number of reasons for my own personal recommendation. I did think about this, and I would like to have everybody consider the possibility of meeting at 4 o'clock. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One, it would not require the staff to stay for too much longer beyond the normal close of business. But from a social point of view, we do tend to have receptions at our gallery that start at 5:30. We occasionally have Thursday mixers for the Chamber of Commerce that start at 5:30. And I was thinking that if this meeting started at 4, we would be able to maybe not engage in those gatherings fully, but we could at least participate in a good portion of those gatherings. So those are the reasons that I have decided I personally would like to start at 4.
Okay, anybody have comments and thoughts?
I have a question. What time do other meetings begin?
Yeah, so the council meetings start at 3 now. ZDRB is the latest before this commission, which they start at 5:30. And Yountville Art starts at 4. So they're kind of all over the place. And I think probably originally, even 15 years ago when I started here and had the commission at the time, I think there was more public involvement and maybe a little bit of a different demographic. And so the thought process of starting later was if people were working or families who had children in school. And so I think that has kind of been the thought process when each different body has decided to change the meeting time is kind of based on the amount of public interest and involvement in their meetings, and then what works better for the staff as well as the commissioners. So kind of weighing all of those things.
May I ask you another question? Do you find that they are fairly well attended with outside community members at the 3 o'clock or the 4 o'clock?
The 3 o'clock council meetings, I would say, yes, absolutely. Yountville Arts at 4 o'clock, I kind of see them as similar to this commission and we don't really have a lot of public involvement. We've had public here when we had something fairly exciting or contentious. I can only really think of one thing, but I feel like the demographics that we saw even coming to that meeting to public comment would most likely still come to an earlier time frame, if that makes sense.
Vice Chair Courtney, did you have any thoughts?
I really want to make sure that staff is not inconvenienced or that it works for staff. I heard everything. I'm good.
I think, historically going way back, things all started at 6 for the reasons you stated, Samantha, and now those reasons seem to be less of a factor. I like the idea of, having the staff not have to stay as late. So whatever time the commissioners advocate is fine
I almost
with
think
me.
it's kind of a funny role reversal. I was thinking about it, that we actually may get more public involvement at an earlier time than we get now at our 6 o'clock time, just because of the real change in our population. I know I've not been here as long as you, Alan, but that we've seen over even the last 15 years that kind of thinking about it in a different way might actually get the public more involved. So, but staff will come whenever you want us to come. This is what works for you and the community, but definitely whatever time you all decide on.
Okay, I think we have discussed it about as much as we're gonna, and so I think what we need now is a motion.
I'd like to move that we modify the Parks and Recreation Committee bylaws, Article A6A, and that will include changing the start time from 6 o'clock, regular meetings from 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. All right. So I think that passes.
I just wanted to remind you, I put in the staff report, but then the next step to formalize this is the council does have to approve the change to the bylaws, and once that's approved, it will go into effect. So I will bring that in April, and hopefully there's really no reason that by the May meeting we won't put that into effect, and then we'll make sure and notice the community as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so that was item 7. Now item 8, staff informational reports. Item 8A, informational item regarding use of herbicides and pesticides in Yountville parks.
Yes, Rosal Ramirez, Deputy Public Works Director, and a staff report was provided that broke down our use of herbicides and pesticides. So I won't read that directly, but I'll just kind of summarize what it states. Our staff, what our public works staff actually uses in the parks and public places is all herbicide. So we don't use pesticide to spray anything in the parks or the pathways or the public areas by our staff. The pesticides that are used are coming from the consultant we hire, Clark's Pest, and that's strictly for pest control when we see it arise. So it's just as we see it, and definitely not in our parks and landscaping and public areas. We do use, and we called out in the staff report, emergent called Cheetah Pro, which follows our regulations. And when we do use it, we post at the entrance of each area that we're at. So if there's a park and it has 2 entrances, we'll post at both sides. And we do put them on signs that state the date, the information, and even with the signs, the area is still accessible. It's still safe to access during and after the actual spraying. And I'm open to any questions regarding what we use.
Does anybody have any questions? I do. Thank you.
I did notice in the staff report that when you learned that Roundup was really problematic, you made a shift away from that, and you chose something that you thought was more environmentally safe. And I appreciated that inclusion in the report and knowing that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I have never seen in all the, I travel around to the parks and paths at least 4 or 5 times a week. And so coming and going at least 8 or 10 times. And I've never, ever seen a sign. So I'm wondering, what do they look like?
And
how big are they?
They are kind of your standard signs. They're not very, maybe 8.5 by 11. They're not very large or prominent, so that might be the issue. And when staff puts them in, they do try to keep it out of the way of the walkways and the entrances so people can still access. So that might be one of the reasons you haven't seen them as well. I did ask staff, and they showed me what the signs actually look like, and they're plain white signs with red lettering. But I asked them next time they are going to spray and post to let me know, so I can inform Sam to let PRAC know, and also take a picture to show kind of what their standard setup is, and if there's any suggestions to make it more prominent, we're open to that as well.
Okay, great. So I notice that you have a QAC. So how many QACs do you have?
We have 3 staff members at Public Works Community Ops staff that are QACs.
Okay. And so usually one of those, and are they the ones that exclusively apply the herbicides, or do other people under their supervision do it?
They are the ones that exclusively apply the herbicide, and usually currently our community ops manager is a QAC, and he's typically the one that does it. But when he can't, he will have the other 2 QACs apply it.
Okay, that's great. And then I think the only other thought that I had was on one particular weed that I'm seeing show up a lot more often than it used to. I first saw it up at the vet's home, and now, especially at Veterans Park, it's pokeweed, Poke Salad Annie, if you know that song. Anyway, it's pokeweed. It becomes quite large. It's very large along the Hopper Creek path, and mainly in parks. I see it at Veterans Park, especially at the north end. And it's very invasive. It develops these black berries that round small berries that the birds seem to like, and then it ends up in our gardens. I've had to pull it out of my yard a number of times. It can get 6-8 feet tall. The ones along Hopper Creek are that big every year. And that brings up another question I had. I noticed that the herbicide spraying seems to stop as you proceed north along the Hopper Creek path from Fennell. It seems to stop right where the maybe Hopper Creek condominiums begin. And I'm wondering, and in the past I've heard that sometimes the creek was treated, weeds along the creek, and weed removal was handled by maybe the county. So could you clarify that, how weeds are handled in that strip right behind Hopper Creek?
And that might be why you see maybe some stop of the spraying on our end on the Hopper Creek. So the closer we get to the actual creek, we want to make sure we're not putting any type of chemical that's going to run off into the creek itself. When it's weeding and spraying the creek bed, the county will come out in certain areas and take care of that. So I'll have to find out more information to see where our limit starts and their limit starts to know exactly why we're stopping.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a jurisdictional issue. Okay, I think that was pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So that was item 8A, and then 8B, Public Works Department General Update.
Yes, and I'm back. We had, I think since the last time we've met, the big project that we finished were the shade cells at North Park. and we got those done just in time for our Mardi Gras parade. And actually, the installer and the contractor who put those in asked if I had any pictures of the shade sails up during the parade. And I told him, unfortunately, you built the shade sails really well, so I was under the shade taking pictures of the parade and didn't get any pictures of the shade sails themselves. But those are up, and they kind of blend in pretty nicely. So I'm excited to see how the public uses them during the summer, maybe take some photographs of the shade sails working and providing that shade for them. Other than that, we have any projects that actually specifically impact pathways or parks or just our regular maintenance right now. We're going through and doing some sidewalk grinding. So any lifted sidewalk that can be shaved down is going to occur in the next couple months. And then as summer season comes and construction season comes, you'll start seeing sidewalk repairs and maybe even some new sidewalks going in and some improvements to pathways. And we have our annual Vine Trail maintenance, so you'll see those regular items coming up. And then as we get any larger projects confirmed or we know better schedules, I'll bring those as well. And I'm open to any questions regarding any projects or areas.
I just wanted to say thank you for the shade structures. I actually walked past them last weekend, and people were sitting under them and picnicking under them. There was a birthday party by the children's playground, and then there were a few individuals under the shade structure that's, on the other side of the park. There's one that's closer to Madison. I think it looks lovely, and it seems like it's going to get a lot of use especially once the summer comes around. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree. I was up there with a friend, and they had small children, and it was being used, it was morning, but it was still being used quite a bit at the tables. So excellent. And then I also wanted to comment about your the hydrant flushing and the company that you hired, and that seemed really intriguing and interesting to me. And so I talked to the gentleman, and he was very informative, but maybe if you could give me just a little more detail on that. It was interesting.
So our hydrant flushing, or it's what we did this year is called zero waste flushing. So instead of a lot of times when we do hydrant flushing, you'll see the water just pouring out of the fire hydrant. We were looking for alternatives to that when the drought was a little bit more prevalent. But when we saw this opportunity, even though we're not in a drought anymore, we still wanted to find a way to do the zero waste. So they're connecting hoses up to hydrants and flushing our water systems just as you would when you see the water coming out of the hydrant, just to clear it out and provide preventative maintenance of the lines, kind of cleaning the lines without having to actually depressurize or turn off the lines or cause any boil water notices. The water stays completely safe. It's just circulating throughout completely treated pipes and our system, and just providing the preventative maintenance.
Yeah, and I was impressed that he said that it encompasses a pretty large area, just hooking it up to 2 hydrants, which I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah.
So nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a filter in the line to catch sediment or
Yes,
sand?
and they're hoses.
Yeah, I
So
saw the hoses.
Those hoses will capture some of that sediment that's clearing out from the line.
And what actually collects the sediment? The hoses
The
themselves?
filter in they have, so part of the hoses, they have it connected to their equipment into a filter system.
Right.
So that filter is what collects
Yes,
that
exactly.
sediment.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the water filters right through and cleans out and goes back into the pipe.
It's amazing.
It's very, with how compact the actual setup is. And yes, the hoses were large, but they managed to keep it as out of the way of traffic and the public as possible. And it took them 2 weeks to do the whole town.
Yeah, that's great. Other thoughts on? Okay, I think we're to item 8C. Thank you, Rosalba.
Thank you. Wrong pipe. Recovering from that. All right, so I'm happy to give the Parks and Rec Department update. Rosalba mentioned Mardi Gras, so we had our first inaugural Mardi Gras parade and festival, which was very successful. I would estimate, having been through many Yountville Days parades, that we probably had about double the amount of spectators along the streets than I've seen at a Yountville Days parade in quite some time. So I think we got very lucky with weather. We had a really large turnout of people. I'm so sorry. who wanted to come out and watch. So we're assessing that. We're doing some surveying of the businesses. It's always the most unopportune times that you get like a weird tickle in your throat. So we're looking at that. We're assessing if we're going to continue doing that every year and where that leaves us with Yountville Days in the future. So I look forward to coming back and discussing that with you at a future date. We just wrapped up our summer rec guide development, and so it's at the printer right now. And it'll be out in mailboxes that first week of April. It is live as of this evening before I came here on our website. So I'm really proud of that. It's the first brochure we've done with our new team. Caitlin did a really terrific job. And we have a lot of great activities. And of course, summer, we're very heavy with events. So most of the same ones we always look forward to will be back this summer. We're recruiting right now for summer camp recreation assistants. And so we'll continue with, of course, Camp Wyville this summer and taking the 80 kids. We do have some spots to fill, so Taylor and her team will be doing the interviews for that on the 29th. I did want to share, you'll see some action going on at the community center starting next week, and so I was managing that project of the barbecue area improvements, and so we've been working on that for quite some time. To try to enhance that back patio area to make it more user-friendly, not just for rentals, but also for some of the community events that we've been trying to get going more often back there. The area was improved when the new community center opened, but hasn't had a lot of maintenance, or not, I shouldn't say maintenance, it hasn't had a lot of any improvements since then. And so the goal would be to really enclose the current barbecue area so that it stays cleaner inside, and then there'll be roll-up doors and counters to make it more useful. We're also working with Heston on improving the outdoor area, and so there's a landscaped area right where the ramp goes up to the kitchen that we're looking at converting into an L-shaped area with another an actual gas-powered outdoor barbecue and a pizza oven, and just a lot of counter space to enhance that area as well. You may not be aware that the barbecue area that's there now, it's actually a charcoal barbecue. With an industrial hood, which is fairly uncommon. And most caterers, it's not something they're really interested in utilizing. But we are going to maintain that and enhance it so it still is usable, but decided to work on that outside area. So in the end, it'll be a great enhancement for people who do rent the facility, but I think mainly for us to look at maybe some outdoor cooking programming, as well as just enhance the events that we do have out there. The emergency preparedness series, and then of course like the residence bash and things like that. So also be looking at some shade and some new tables and things like that for back there. We just met earlier this week, so the Bocce League will be starting in a couple weeks, so you'll see some maintenance going on out there, just getting those ready, nothing major, just the annual cleanup. So thanks to Public Works for that. I did want to note the shade structures are amazing, and every time I'm out there, we get a ton of people just saying that they love them. We did take the opportunity to kind of assess how we lay out the picnic areas there, and so it made a lot more sense to just combine sites 3 and 4 at the bottom. You may not have even ever noticed, but those are 2 picnic sites at the south end of the park. And it made a lot more sense to combine them to really utilize the shade, because that's what most people want when they have a reserved area for a picnic. And so we're working on the new fees for that, which would be what the fees are at Veterans Memorial Park Site 5, because it'll hold up to 80 people. So it's a larger site. We still kept some tables on the periphery that are just the drop-in tables. So you'll see some updates and signage there, and we're going to move the 2 barbecues together so it looks very cohesive. I looked back, statistically, we've actually never rented those 2 sites separately at the same time. So it just made sense in a lot of different ways. And so lastly, I just wanted to talk about the Yountville Commons. So obviously, we're up and running over there, and Yountville Fit opened in January, as you know, and it's going very well. And what was the multi-purpose room, which is now Schmidt Hall, you may have gone through during the 60th anniversary, which was terrific. We had it set up, and now we're utilizing it for mainly our youth programs. And then anytime we have to displace maybe an adult class due to a rental or something like that, we're utilizing the space. And then we're working on fees and charges that'll have to come forward to council, so that it's a rental space, looking at also outfitting it with tables and chairs, the things that most adults want. You don't want to sit on a hard bench for a day-long seminar. So you'll see that, and we'll, around programming needs, we'll have that as another rental facility. So I may have mentioned this in the past, but we do have a dog park liaison group. So similar to the pickleball liaison group that helps advise us on things about pickleball, I did assemble a dog park liaison group as we were getting the dog park going. So we are meeting, and Alan, you had asked me this, we're meeting next week to consider implementing what we had originally talked about was a small and a large dog area. And so part of the hesitation on the investment of adding more fencing was the end of this planning process. So we didn't want to invest more in the dog park if it eventually it may go away, and we know that it won't. And the way that we installed the fencing, it's something that could potentially be moved. So we're going to meet with the liaison group and discuss what we feel like would be a good layout. We want to make sure it's as safe as it is now, so it would need another gate and then another fence line. So we'll assess that and then work with Public Works on seeing the cost of that and if it's currently in the budget. But overall, I feel like the dog park is going really well. So on occasion, we hear of an issue and we navigate that issue, and a lot of it just comes down to owner behavior. And so gentle reminders from the people around you, if your dog's having a crazy day and, is grumpy, then it's not the best day to be at the dog park. But I think overall, I've had 5 interactions and complaints. So I actually track them. I have a spreadsheet. So I think that some of the hesitation and concerns in the beginning have diminished a little bit. And there have been some issues, and there was a gentleman, we were getting complaints about early mornings before it was supposed to open. And I was actually here one day at 7:15 and talked to the person. So it reminded them that even though the sun comes up and it's dark earlier at night, you still can't be in here till 8 a.m. And so mostly people are very receptive to those issues, but I'm amazed. I mean, you go by, I'm sure, Alan, more than I do, that the utilization is pretty high of the dog park, especially as the sun comes out and warms up. So, but we're continuing to assess it and meet with the liaison group and navigate any issues that might come up. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions on Parks and Rec? Myrna?
Regarding Yountville Commons, I just want to get some clarity on your role as a Parks and Rec department in the various components of Yountville Commons. For example, are you in partnership with Yountville Fit? Do you have a role, for example, with the farm stand, which as I walked here tonight and I noticed all the
I didn't talk about that.
They're really enhancing it and making it quite lovely before it opens. I don't know whether you have a role in the farm stand garden that may just be kind of an long-term interim project. It may not. It didn't look like it actually was part of the approved plan, but. Just to get a little bit of clarity on Parks and Rec's role in those different components of Yountville Commons.
So I think I've been more involved. So just to clarify your one question, so Yountville Fit and the farm stand that's getting ready to open, those were both use agreements, and so they're I guess. You can mostly say they're a tenant, right? But we call them a use agreement because it's public facility. And so helping to facilitate the some of the projects that were going on there were definitely roles of Public Works and Parks and Rec to get that suitable for public access, basically. But we do not have anything else to do with that, with the exception of maintenance. So if there's some sort of maintenance issue that comes up, obviously we respond. The farm stand is the same. So we both departments work to get that up for code, basically, and it just got a new roof because we had a roof leak and things like that. But as far as running their establishment or being involved or anything other than really maintenance up and once they get going, there's no role. The farm stand garden's a little different. That's more of like a community project, and so staff is working with what's a volunteer group now to get that moving and up and running and supporting them. Obviously, the park space and the green space is something that we oversee and maintain. And Little League also has a use agreement for their use of the field, but all of the maintenance and everything comes under Public Works. And then I'm kind of the go-between. I work with all of the use agreement holders to navigate, things that come up, and obviously rely heavily on Rosalba and Public Works to fix things and help to, any maintenance issues. For space-wise, so we are Parks and Rec is in control of the Schmidt Hall, basically, to use as a recreational facility, however we see fit. And so that's what we're working on is, the expectation. There's not, Golden Ticket is such an important and high utilized program at the community center, but it also takes away any real meeting space opportunities Monday through Friday. So there's this, it's a great opportunity to have this secondary space. And, we always get complaints. So when we have annual conferences that sometimes they're booking every year and they're historic. So they displace classes. And although that one facility isn't going to change everything, it does help, to move some things down there when those days occur. And then also have somewhere to point people. So, if they're looking for 100 people meeting space Monday through Friday, that's something we could offer as well. So those are really obviously the dog park and any of the park space is under the town's and Parks and Recreation and Public Works staff, the community garden, and then, maintenance of the whole site, basically. Does that help? Yeah.
And I just have one real quick question. As I was walking past, I noticed there was baseball going on,
Yes.
baseball practice, and I wanted to mention that the grass looks great there. For the first
they work
time
so
in
hard.
ages.
Yeah.
It's really looking healthy, and it was kind of nice to see it utilized, and the field was all set up, and it looked really nice.
Yeah. So their opening day is this Saturday, and I know Public Works team has worked really hard to get that lawn back up and running, and I think it was months of irrigation work that went into trying to get that whole facility back online. So, but it's definitely paid off, and I believe they have 3 teams this season, and they'll start on Saturday, and I try to encourage them to make the public know when their games are, because I think our residents like to come out and watch too. So, yeah.
Just a quick question. So is Kids Camp going to be pretty much home to Schmidt Hall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like this summer, and last summer too, we moved it down there, and it really helps us to continue our adult programming pretty much uninterrupted throughout the summer. Yeah. So when we were sharing a facility, we kind of limped by, but it was pretty rough. So it does allow us that, and it helps on both ends. Yeah. And it's super conducive to having the kids on site with the playground and the field space and everything. So, yeah.
Vince, did you have any comments or questions?
I'm enjoying it.
Okay, very good, the discussion. Okay, several things. Let's start with baseball because that's where we ended up. Are the teams at this point expansion teams from Napa, do we know, or are they, is Yountville baseball actually running and recruiting these teams, or is it an extension of Napa Little League?
I don't know. I don't have the statistics on their signups, and so I could ask their leaders at some point, kind of
Yeah.
get an idea of where that's coming from. But just knowing demographically, what we have here in town, I'm assuming that there's some kids coming. And whether it's because they didn't get in Napa or they just are continuing to play here because they didn't get in the past.
Yeah.
Not sure how many are residents versus non, pretty
Yeah.
much. But
Yeah.
I could check into it.
That would
Yeah.
be great. That would be helpful. Let's see. I noticed at the pickleball courts, one of the umbrellas had a problem with the clamp, and that was at the end of last season, and it's been kind of on the ground through most of the winter. And I noticed on Monday that it's no longer there. So I don't know if somebody, on staff decided to fix it, which would be great because having 3 umbrellas there is really helpful, and the whole bleacher area is covered. And I hear on Monday and Tuesday we're going to be up
It'd be
into
warm.
the 80s.
Yeah. No, we'll get out there and take a look. And honestly, sometimes those umbrellas, if they make it one season, it's a big deal for me. So we'll come out and assess those for sure and get whatever's needed to fix it.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Lorraine?
The umbrella thing reminded me, I had asked many, like one of the first meetings, because I noticed that little pocket park on
Oak Circle.
Yeah, and some of the umbrellas remained open, and I was a little worried that if the wind blew them, they would break. So maybe if we could install a sign that just says, please close when you're finished using the umbrellas. I just don't want to see them, I just don't want to see them blown over and ruined because they were open.
Thanks for the reminder.
There is a sign like that at the pickleball courts that maybe, I'm not sure everybody adheres to that, but there is a sign.
It's okay. We can try. Yeah. But no, thank you for the reminder.
I was surprised, actually, pleasantly, how it seemed to be 100% at the pickleball courts. That the last person is like, turn off the lights, you shut the umbrellas down. Okay, so thank you. Just one last thing, seeing a vacant chair over here. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, our empty seat. Yes. So Hillary is now back from maternity leave, so we'll have a little bit more capacity to get going behind that. And I think too is I did follow up with 2 people that had applied previously, but they have not submitted an application. So we'll just keep trying. And if there's anyone in the community that you might recommend I reach out to, please let me know. It's always good to diversify a little bit. I've reached out to, anyone I know that has a child here in town that, is in elementary school, but I think capacity-wise, it's just hard for people to commit, but we're going to continue pushing for sure.
I would think that maybe Golden Ticket or something like that might be an interesting audience to at least tap into and see if there's any interest there. Okay, moving on to item 9. Thank you, Samantha, for your report. Item 9, Commissioner comments and reports. Does anyone have? Myrna, hold on. Okay, thank you. Lorraine, anything? Vincent, anything?
Not really a comment or a report, but kind of like an ask. I've been remiss because I also sit on the NBTA Citizen Advisory Committee, and we do get some really interesting updates from staff. And I know that we had some success with the ballot measure, and I know that the town is going to start to reap some of the rewards on a Measure U, not for Measure U. But one of the things that I think is most interesting is this one final segment of the Vine Trail, and so I think you just mentioned it. Is it something that we can hear about here from time to time? Because I know there's issues with easements, and there's all kinds of heavy lifting. It's the funding's not there, and so if everything comes together, it might be connected in 2029. And so if we could get a routine or some, every once in a while, just so everyone hears it, because it is. I think the more we talk about it, the more it becomes a reality. And so my hope is that Because why wouldn't we? It's kind of like the last piece. That was all I had.
Any comment on that, or?
Yeah, we can. So we occasionally get updates as well, since we don't have a lot of say over the Vine Trail, the new design, or the new segment that's being built. But we do get updates occasionally, so we can definitely put something together. By the time we meet again, we should have gotten at least a couple of updates that we can provide. I think they just recently have an alternate design, so that's still going back and forth. They don't have a firm one yet. Originally, they were trying to get everything on the west side of 29, and now there's even some ideas of crossing and bringing it now to connect to our existing Vine Trail on the east side. So we can collect what we have and maybe put together some sort of informational report and bring it back the next time.
That would be great.
Thank you. Myrna?
Just following up on that, I think that's a really interesting information need, and I'm wondering if it would make sense if someone from the Vine Trail could, just do a little presentation for us and let us, give us an update so that the burden isn't totally on you to get all that information, and see if they think there's any way, we can get involved as a community or as individuals, what they might be looking for to expedite that process. Because I'm personally a Vine Trail user and would love to learn more about our segment and where that stands. It's always been kind of one of these amorphous things that, is always talked about and never happens. So,
Yeah, it's definitely something we could reach out to them. I think they do enjoy presenting their work or what their ideas and what they want. So I don't think it would be difficult to have them at least appear to 1 or 2 meetings, but we will reach out and see. It also depends on their availability. Yeah. So we will reach out and see if they can make it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Did you have something else, Myrna?
The only thing I wanted to say is that I attended a training a couple of weeks ago on the Brown Act, and that was through my role as a county commissioner. I'm a library commissioner as well. So I don't know if anybody would like information about the Brown Act from this training. We do have, there is a presentation that is online, and I could pass it along to people. I don't know, Samantha, have you had anyone from the county come and do a training, or have you done a training on this?
I've done a lot of trainings over the years, so we try to condense it in the handbook for you guys. But I think, links to videos and stuff on people that people might find interesting or expand on that is always helpful. Yeah,
I think they've done some updating of it, some of the rules. I'm not sure. I wasn't really that involved in it up until now, but it was just interesting to hear the presentation. And if anybody wants to follow up on that, you can let me know, or we can follow up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. All righty.
All right. Seeing no other commissioner comments or reports, we'll move to item 10, which is the adjournment. So can I have a motion to adjourn until our regular meeting on Thursday, May 15th, hopefully at 4 o'clock?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. There we are. Thank you.